right. Welcome, guys. Today is the first episode of Growing the Middle podcast, and I am super, super pumped about it. I've been wanting to start a podcast for a long time because I wanted to be able to expand everyday tips, knowledge, things I wish I've known for years on end with a broader audience than just like my friends and my coworkers. So today I'm bringing you all the first episode of Growing the Middle. And I want to give you a little background on what Growing the Middle is, who I am, why you should care, why you should listen, and some of the cool things that we'll go over and talk about on this podcast. First things first, I am joined by my amazing, amazing friend and producer, Stephen Patrick of Mid-Century Marketing. This podcast is produced by Mid-Century Marketing. So shout out to Stephen. He'll be joining us today, really, because I am terrified of talking directly into the camera. And so as I work on getting over this fear, Stephen is here to support me in a very awkward fashion. So very excited about that.
Well, thank you for the introduction, Mariah. It's so great to be here. How you feeling?
Nervous.
Why?
Oh my, talking, like, it's so interesting to have this like deep thought and idea and be so passionate about it. And then when it comes to executing on it, be scared shitless.
You and I have talked about this for a while, and this idea has been in your head for a while. Why don't you give our listeners kind of an overview as to where this came from?
So the idea of this podcast has been really circling around for some time. I've always had this idea of what success means. And I'll take a step back. I've always seen this idea of success means a certain thing. People feel like success means that you're rich or you are defined as extremely wealthy. You hold certain titles. You've got a certain amount of money in your bank account. You have ticked off all of these things, whether they're accolades or you have a level of credibility that is defined by the masses in order to like really have true success. For a while, I felt like that is what everyone looks up to, whether they admit it or not. Everybody's like, okay, yeah, I want to be a insert big title of thing. And as you grow in your career, I've been in my little career now for 11 years, and I've grown to understand that success has so many different definitions and examples. And there isn't this just poverty lane and success. There's so much in the middle that no one really talks about or desires to grow into. And that's where Growing the Middle formed, right? What about when you are in the middle of your life, your career, and you have all of these things that you've been working really hard for and you're really excited about them, but because they're not what people define as like the end goal, there's not a lot of resources around. How do you become a director? How do you get your salary into that high middle class? How do you focus there versus all the way to the end of the finish line? For the last several years, this has just been a thought in my head of how do I speak to the people who are in the middle of their careers and their lives? They're having a lot of like success and experiences. How do I get to talk to them on a larger platform and share it with those who are either in the same position or those who are looking to grow in their careers and experience different levels of success?
So I love that backstory. And I'm curious, what is different about this podcast? Because there are so many podcasts in the world.
So I think what's different about this podcast is that I am going to share stories of my life, my success, and varied failures from a very true and authentic place, and my journey along being an employee, but then also a business owner, and show you from a perspective of here's what's actually going well and here's what's not, how I'm getting through it. And then introducing you to people who are in core roles that help the company run, that the company relies on for revenue, for marketing, for operations to run smoothly. If these people all picked up and left their jobs today, the companies would crumble. And it is not often that you're getting to meet the people in these roles. Most of the world don't know these roles exist. And so I think that's what's going to be different. So if I give an example, everybody knows Issa Rae and Issa Rae as a conglomerate and all the things that she is. How many people understand who her director of marketing is, or her PR person, or the person that creates her events, who runs the studio, things like that? Because without those people, there's no Issa Rae, the conglomerate. And so I want people to be introduced to roles like that because they are filled with experiences, success, laugh, joy, and money. And I think that everyone should have an idea of all of the things that are out there in terms of roles, experiences, and then also personal examples of success.
And this is a spoiler alert to our wonderful listeners. I've had the pleasure of listening in on a handful of those conversations. And there are so many great people that Mariah has interviewed and so many interesting stories and different titles. I'm going to flip this to you, Mariah, because we know a lot about some of our guests, but some of our listeners might not know about you, i.e. my mother who is listening.
Yeah. Hey, Mom.
Hey, Mom. Tell us a little bit about your background and any experience you have or had in the middle.
Awesome. All right. So a little bit about me. I am Mariah Krystal Bain, officially. Recently married this past year. Career-wise, I've spent the last 11 years in customer success and account management, the latter half of my career in tech. And then before that, in very traditional roles throughout insurance companies. I was also a licensed underwriter, so that's interesting. And currently, I am the owner, founder, CEO of AYC Consulting Group. Authentically You Coaching is a coaching community that focuses on affordable services for professionals looking to grow their careers, understand their skill sets, and making sure that you get access to coaching before you get to an executive level, right? Coaching is something that is honestly needed way before you reach an executive level. So we strive to focus on a community and helping people to understand their skill sets and align them with higher paying roles. I am the senior director of candidate placement for a nonprofit called Rework Training, a tech sales bootcamp that helps people from underserved and overlooked communities break into tech via sales, which is near and dear to my heart. So for those of you that are looking for a free way to break into sales, I would absolutely recommend Rework Training, and I'll drop some links below. There, I build out workshops for our candidates and help them to prepare for tech roles. I also work very closely with our partners to basically be a direct pipeline from the partner to the candidate to make sure that we can put our candidates to the front of the line. It is still their job to land the interview themselves, but we prep them, we connect them, and then we teach them how to network and interview, which I think is really, really cool and exciting, all for free. Free.
What are some of the titles that you've worn that represent the middle?
Some of my middle titles that I'm actually really excited about. I've been a director of account management. I've been the director of customer success, head of customer success and operations. From December 2018, I started off in traditional insurance, making about $68,000 a year. I was a licensed underwriter. I was an account manager. I had a team of 5 under me. I was like, oh, this is cool, but not enough money and not enough dreams and passions aligned. Was able to jump into tech. Fast forward about 5 years later, I was making $213,000, which is something that I'd not seen for myself Not that I didn't think it was possible. It just was one of those things where it was just like, wasn't on the roadmap. And in that time, I have interviewed hundreds of candidates. I've been able to hire entire teams. I've been able to run a department. I've run two departments at this time in my career, one department as large as 33 people, which has been really exciting, stressful. I've been able to create compensation plans. I've been able to create programs.
Mariah, you didn't have a playbook to do all of those things, right? Like you didn't have from the underwriting, and this is how I'm going to pivot to tech. This is how I'm going to start managing 33 people. Like, how did you do it? What did you lean on?
Oh my God, I love that question. With no playbook, how did I jump to do all of those things? I will tell you, full of fear, jumping around, constantly trying to find resources. Honestly, sometimes mimicking the routes of my peers until I was like, ooh, I don't want to go this far. I don't really like this role. Testing things out and really trying to find my lane. I think that's the biggest thing. Throughout this 11 years, I've been trying to figure out who I want to be in my career and what playbook I want to build versus just following what I've seen around me and what was going on in my network and everyone telling me like, you would be a great CCO or CRO or CEO. And then getting closer to those positions and level wise and realizing like, hell no, I absolutely do not want to do that. No thanks. Because I like being in the middle of strategy and execution. And the higher you get up, you're literally paid to think, make decisions, and you get further away from the customers. You get further away from the team, the day to day. And that is actually feedback I've always gotten. The more I've moved up in my career, it's always been like, hey, something I want you to work on is your balance between strategy and being in the weeds. You can't be in the weeds every day. And I'm like, yeah, every time we think about strategy, you guys forget everything in the weeds and everything that actually needs to happen to execute this big, lofty, insane, crazy dream that you have. And I was like, if I get to a CEO or whatever position in the executive level, I don't think they all lose sight of it, but by nature, a lot of them lose sight of like the work it takes to get there, and the flexibility and the vision, and also understanding that there is, what is it, more than one way to skin a cow or a cat. I don't know why we're skinning cats,
Maybe we'll do more than one way to prepare tofu.
something.
We don't need that energy in 2025 on the premiere episode of this podcast.
Yeah. But honestly, like, okay, I think that there's also a lot of rigidness in being an exec outside of your own, right? Like I'm a CEO and founder of my own company. Great, amazing. I get to show what that looks like. But I feel like a lot of times in the companies that I've worked in order to like get to that CEO level, the higher I got up, the more I progressed, the more I was promoted, the more it felt like, okay, you need to tone this down. You need to not do this. And for those of you that don't know me personally, I have a very big personality and I've been very successful being my authentic self. It took some time in the beginning, but I've had a lot of success being me, finding what that looks like professionally. And my clients love me, my coworkers love me. I don't need to be at that level in order to be successful and to be happy. A lot of the reasons that I didn't want to sit in those roles is because I feel like it started to eat away at my creativity and my ability to be connected to the customer, which is so important to me, the end customer, the user, and I didn't want to lose sight of that. So that is where Grow in the Middle came from, because as a coach, both for Rework and for AYC, daily I'm hearing people who are like, okay, my dream is to insert this big role. And a lot of times they're like, currently underpaid for where they are in their roles, underutilized, overworked, and they don't have a great understanding of what their skill set is. And if they do, they don't have an understanding of how to translate it into higher paying roles, roles that are more free, that have a lot more autonomy, roles that are a lot more flexible and creative. And seeing that day to day, people can't connect. How do I get from bank teller to running the entire Western region for insert big bank name? And it always seems like, okay, this is so impossible. And so people either stay where they are or they have like these little incremental movements. And it's just like, well, damn, I didn't make it because I didn't hit this like insane goal. What I want this platform to be, the podcast and the newsletter, an example of ways you can be introduced to roles that you've probably never thought of and explain how or what skills translate into these roles so that you can start thinking about new avenues for yourself. I want this to be a space where you can define what your lifestyle and money goals look like so that you know in the next 3 years, I want to make X amount of money, right? I want to be able to have those conversations, show you that these things are obtainable, introduce you to people who are doing these things, and then also provide you the resources to get there, right? So the resource may look like Rework as a boot camp. It may look like a community such as Sisters in Sales, which is the #1 sales platform for women of color. It may look like Women in Revenue, which is another community. And all of these communities offer free resources, templates, communities of people who are willing to give you referrals and help you get to where you need to be. So this space is for the people who are looking to grow in their careers and in their personal life, to make those transitions and to find success on their own terms and what that looks like for them. That's why I'm here. That's my mission in life. With all that said, I want this to be a community. I want to build a community of listeners that are looking to make changes in their lives. Again, like I said, professionally, we are going to talk a lot about career, but I'm a very big believer that your personal life heavily affects your career. And so whatever you do in your personal life rolls over and vice versa. And so I want you to be able to learn more about your goals, the strategies to get there, and I want to grow and learn with you, right? That's the thing that this is. So I'm not gonna sit here and say that this podcast is going to be perfect and buttoned up. It is going to be a learning experience, and I'm really excited about that because I feel people need to see people trying and doing things in fear. Everybody's posting, do it scared, and as I posted that today, I'm going to show you what it looks like to do things scared. So if no one listens to this podcast, it will still be out there, but hopefully you all will listen and get something out of it. So let's talk about what's in the Grow in the Middle brand. So we have this podcast. As we mentioned, you now have a little insight on what the podcast is about. We will also have a complimentary newsletter, and in the newsletter, it will follow the theme of the podcast. So spoiler alert, the first couple episodes are going to be around goal setting, how to do it the right way, how to plan, how to challenge yourself. And so the newsletter will have some direct tips, tricks, and challenges each month for you to follow. Building on community, in the newsletter, we'll have a space for you to be able to ask questions. You can ask career questions, personal questions, and we'll share feedback. I'll give you my feedback, but I will also reach out to my network and get some answers from people who are in some of the situations that you all may mention. So really excited about that. You can expect the newsletter twice a month. Podcast will be weekly, a commitment.
Yes.
That I'm excited about. There will be a variety of episodes of me solo touching on some topics that are near and dear to my heart, and then expanding some of these topics out with some really interesting guests. understanding what their trajectory looks like, how they relate to said topic. One topic I'm really excited about is breaking free from complacency. It plagues us all. But those things that's what you can expect from the Growing the Middle brand. One thing that I want to say before I tell you about all the things you need to run and do after you finish listening to this podcast is that oftentimes we don't give ourselves enough credit and we don't highlight and talk about our accomplishments in a way that we should be proud of. We kind of just check the boxes as like, yeah, I did this because I'm supposed to do it, or I haven't done enough yet, and we downplay it. And what this podcast I want to serve as is an ode to not just my friends who I believe that are doing amazing things that I think that you all should know for a ton of reasons. I think that they're inspiring in their own right in all of the amazing things that they've been able to do. My network, all the people that have inspired me and helped me to get where I am or continue to inspire me every day. It's a place to build my own stage, right? I am looking to take on more speaking opportunities. And I've been really nervous about the application process and like, am I qualified to speak? Who am I? And I just decided that this will be my stage and my platform for me and for my network and for anyone who has something helpful to share to my audience. So I'm really, really excited about that. And I'm really excited to bring such a variety of amazing and dope people and open the minds of my listeners. So that excites me.
And I will say this, our guests are dope. I want to just go back 2 seconds, Mariah, because, you'd said that we all have a list of things to do and we don't really focus on the accomplishments, and we should be proud of them. Well, I just have to say I'm very proud of you for launching this because you've talked about it for a while and you're finally here. How are you feeling in one word?
Grateful. I had a whole bunch of other words that I had to reel it in. Grateful. You want to give me some other words?
No, grateful is great. But I think I'd love to hear from the listeners in the comments, like what's something that you did this week that you're really, really proud of?
Yeah, I would love that. I would love to hear what you guys are doing that is making you feel proud, grateful, accomplished, relieved, because I feel all of these ways. With all that being said, I want to make sure that we are taking the time out to look back at all of the amazing things, big or small, that we've accomplished and really spend some time with it. We downplay and play it small way too often, and then we start to believe that we aren't as great as we truly are. And so I think that through this podcast and newsletter, I want to be able to continue to show you every day extraordinary people and examples of greatness in its own right. And what I hope that you take away from this podcast is maybe you learn a new skill, you find a new person to be inspired by, you get a new job, you learn how to make more money, you find a hobby that's really exciting to you, you learn how to articulate yourself better, to negotiate better, you find a friend, and most importantly, you find community. Because if you have one of those things at the end of this podcast episode or 3 episodes in, then I've done my job. So, first episode, this is the first episode of Growing the Middle. Super excited about it. Super duper shout out to Steven because I was like, yeah, I want to do a podcast and a newsletter because truly I hate creating content and I just really want to say all the things and put it out. And Steven was like, okay. And then a week later, he was like, okay, so we're creating the podcast and the newsletter. Here's all the things you need to do. I've already done these things and I'm ready to go. And I was like, okay, so this is happening. I said it, but I didn't mean it, but I meant it. And it speaks to finding people that can pull the absolute best out of you. So I'm more than appreciative to producer, marketing extraordinaire, Stephen
Oh,
Patrick.
oh, well, I'm blushing. For those of you who aren't watching the video, my cheeks are red. I'm sitting with my hands to my cheeks, with my hair swinging back and forth. No, Mariah, thank you. That's very, very kind. But you had the dream. I helped outline some of the stuff that you needed to do to get there, but you've done all of the work. You've done so much, and you should be proud. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I'm proud of me. I'm proud of us.
Look at us.
Yeah. And then newsletter you can expect bi-weekly. And just to throw in on the newsletter, I'm gonna give you in the beginning some stories, a little focus, and then follow up at the end of the month. So you'll see some of the things that I'm working on or some of my guests, and even some of my listeners, how things unfold over time. So again, keeping you connected in the community. But this will be your weekly coaching session, be a little pocket coach. So very, very excited about that. We're going to be able to keep the conversation going. As we mentioned before, comment, subscribe to everything, podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Subscribe to the newsletter. It's on the website. And leave comments. So with that, peace and love, everyone. It's been great. I will see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, share with a friend, comment below. The Growing the Middle podcast is produced and edited by Mid-Century Marketing Company. We aim to create engaging and relatable content that helps you chart your own path to growing the middle. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to let us know. Until next time.